Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is about Eastern Rajasthan Canal project. What is this project all about? This is a major initiative for interlinking of rivers that will be linking Parvati, Kali Sindh as well as the Chambal River. What is the initiative or objective of this program? The project proposes to transfer the excessive water that is present in the Chambal region to the eastern as well as the southeastern region of Rajasthan. Currently, Rajasthan is facing some water crisis, but there is excess of water in the Chambal region. So instead of this water going waste, the initiative or objective of this particular program is to transfer this excessive water to eastern as well as southeastern part of Rajasthan. So this will be accommodating about 13 districts which currently has water deficiency. Another major initiative of this particular project is, apart from providing drinking water facilities, this will also provide irrigation project to this particular area. So what it also means is, apart from the drinking water, it will also enhance the productivity when it comes to the agricultural sector. The provisioning of this particular water is also useful to the DMIC corridor. What I was speaking about, the Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor. This is one of the important corridors that will be connecting Delhi to Mumbai. However, what this project also envisages is it will provide water to this particular region as well. When there is more water that is provided, there will be more investment by the industrial sector. When there is more investment, this will have a spike in the economic activity, and indirectly this will also generate employment. So this is a comprehensive program that the government is planning to come up with. So kindly remember all these important facts. Now let's look at some of the key important facts when it comes to the Chambal River, because this is important from your preliminary point of view. It rises in Old Vindhya range and flows in the northeastern direction. The Chambal River flows to three Indian states. What are these? Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Uttar Pradesh. Kindly remember this. It is a tributary of Yamuna River as it goes and joins the Yamuna, and the main tributaries of Chambal itself are Banas and Mej rivers on the left bank and Parbati, Kali Sindh and Shipra rivers on the right. So kindly remember these important facts because this is important for your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next article. This article says unleashing the potential of urban India. Recently in the year 2018, there was one of the reports that was given, and that is the Global Metro Monitor. This Global Metro Monitor happens to be released by the Brookings Institution. Remember this can be a potential question for your preliminary, and this is a Washington based think tank. So what it does is it looks into all the major cities of the world. It has its own criteria to manage how these countries and its cities are categorized. So once it has identified this particular city in all these major countries, what it will look at is that particular fact as to how much of this particular city is contributing to employment and how much of this particular city is contributing in terms of GDP growth. So the major idea of this particular report is that it look into whether this particular city in that particular country is contributing to employment as well as the growth factor. So this is acting as a powerhouse within that particular country, sucking all people to that particular region so that this city can act as a provision in employing people. According to this particular report, about 36% of the employment growth and 67% of the GDP growth were contributed by 300 large global metros. This is the huge impact that these metropolitan cities have been acting for the global powerhouse. And when it comes to the Indian context, 9 Indian metros feature in top 150 ranks of the Economic Performance Index according to 2018. Delhi has been ranked on the 6th place in terms of best performing metropolitan economies in the world. Kindly remember, Delhi might be famous for its pollution capital, but it is also famous as an economic powerhouse for India. And at the same time, it is currently occupying 6th in the world, and this is sucking all people and providing the economic opportunities and livelihood means for number of people. Other Indian metropolitan cities that have been able to secure the place in 100 metro cities include Hyderabad, which is ranked at 14, followed by Surat, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Kolkata, Ahmedabad as well as Pune. And it also mentions by 2030 India will have 71 metropolitan cities, of which 7 would have a population of more than 10 million. So all these major cities are a key feature for India's urbanization and will play a crucial role in fueling growth. Now let's look at laws for the urban management that is present in the Indian Constitution. There is an article called Article 243 of P subsection C of the Constitution, which defines metropolitan areas as those having population of 10 lakhs, a million or more, comprised in one or more district and consisting of two or more municipalities, panchayats and other contiguous areas specified by the governor through public notification to be a metropolitan area. So what do we mean by it? It means, let's say there is a particular place. Let's take for example Delhi. Delhi has a population of 10 lakhs or 1 million and more. It is this particular region which will have multiple districts. So you have Delhi Central, Delhi North, Delhi South and so on. Within Delhi there are again multiple municipalities which is taking over. Because the city is too huge, there is not a single municipality which is taking over. There are multiple municipalities which is accommodating and meeting the requests of all these local people, and that is what this article speaking about. So it recognizes metropolitan areas as multi-municipal and multi-district entities. Further, accordingly, this article also mentions that every government in the municipal area will have to come up with the Metropolitan Planning Committee. What is this Metropolitan Planning Committee? It's a planning committee as the word denotes, and this is for the metropolitan or that particular city area, which means it is this particular committee which will draft the particular developmental plan. So it will consider the interest of all these people, local authorities, the objectives and priorities that have been set by the central government, that has been laid by the state government, speaking with the local people. So it will consolidate all these ideas from the central, the state as well as the general people and local officials and plan a district plan. So it means it is drafting a particular plan for the local, so that these plans which when implemented will have some impact to this particular region. So ultimately when there is this particular plan that is drafted, there will be more investments that will be likely happening in various sectors in this particular area. To ensure this democratic character of this metropolitan planning agency, what this particular law also mandates is that about 2/3 of the people, that is when it comes to the number of people who are elected in the municipalities, about 2/3 of them are present in this municipality planning committee. So all those people who are elected ward wise, who are representing that particular constituency in this MPC, there will be about 2/3 of the people who will be elected, and rest of them who are part of this will be decided by the legislature of that particular state government. So kindly remember, 2/3 of this metropolitan planning committee will be those people who are elected from this metropolitan city, and 1/3 of its composition will be decided by the state legislature. So it is these people who will accommodate all the requests of the local, the objectives of the center, the objectives of the state. They'll plan a clear criteria and this will be implemented. So the size and the manner of filling such seats are left to the state's discretion. So it is the state which will decide how this has to be filled up. Now we have understood what this is all about. Let's understand few concerns with respect to this particular Metropolitan Planning Committee. So what happens is, according to this particular law, you are supposed to represent and have a representative MPC. So every city which has 1 million or about 10 lakhs of population will need to have the Metropolitan Planning Committee. So according to a recent survey by Janagraha annual survey, only about 9 of the 18 cities have been coming up with this particular planning committee. So according to Janagraha, MPCs were expected to lay the framework for the metropolitan governance. So they will come up with a plan and this is what will be enforced and laid out. But on the ground, they do not exist in majority of the cases, and even if they exist, as we currently discussed, or 9 out of 18 cities, it is not being implemented. They have limited role for the local elected representatives, raising further questions on democratic decentralization. Now the question is, why is that this is happening? This is due to the fragmented architecture of this particular urban governance, which means there are multiple folds within this particular system where the state government is not ready to concede to its power. It is reluctant to hand over the power to the local governments. All the powers are concentrated by the state government, because more the power, they'll be more able to ensure that there is consolidation of power. Even if there are elected representatives that are present, what you will also see is the bureaucracy playing its card. So the central government is setting up the objectives, the state government is setting up its objectives, but these objectives are to be implemented and broadcasted by the MPC, and this MPC is not able to do it because of constant meddling by the state government. It is the state government through its bureaucratic machinery controlling this local decentralized system, which is the major problem and the major concern. So these are the various issues that are prevalent within the Indian Metropolitan Planning Committee as well as with respect to the urban governance. So this has to be dealt with. So there are number of models, but one beautiful model that this article quotes is about UK model, which is called as the city deals. So what happens in United Kingdom? According to this particular model, what happens is you have the central government. You also have the local administration. This local administration is empowered, or it is given enough amount of power by the central government. So the central government has delegated a lot of power to this particular local organization so that they are empowered to address all key issues when it comes to the local scenario. So what happens in this particular thing? Control of decisions are away from the central government to the local authorities. So this model of city deals will also ensure that it was designed to give more power and freedom to the local authorities so that they can do the best to achieve growth in that particular area. In order to give license to this particular model, it has become a statutory setup that has been given through a national legislation, and this national legislation also empowers that this particular model is steered by a directly elected mayor. So what is this UK model ultimately? It means the central government has given enough power to the local government, and this local government will empower itself, achieve the growth factor, and this growth factor is taken over by the elected mayor. So the elected mayor has the onus, he speaks up to the local officials, he speaks up to the people, understands what their problem is, and understanding these problems, he comes up with a measure so that these issues are addressed, and this is what is called as the UK model and city deals, which is empowered by your elected mayor. So this idea of city deals is basically done to more democratize and incentivize the local authorities to collaborate and reduce fragmented governance. Let me give you a simple example and help you understand what this fragmented governance is. We all know about Belanduru Lake that is present in Bangalore. This particular lake had caught fire. There was a lot of foam that was screaming off from this particular lake. It was a national and an international news few months back. So what happens when it comes to fragmented governance is you have number of bodies or number of institutions within the government taking care of one particular function. How? Let's take the example of Belanduru Lake, where you have the Bangalore Developmental Authority. This is the present custodian of the lake with regard to rejuvenation. In case there is a lake, there are issues with respect to that particular lake. Who will bring about change with it? It is the BDA. So it is the BDA which is the custodian of the lake. But what happens? BDA is not ready to rejuvenate this particular river. Why? Because it says Bengaluru Water Supply and Sewage Board, which will have to ensure that sewage water does not enter the lake, is not working. So ideally, it is the BDA which should take care of the lake infrastructure and rejuvenate it. But what it says is that there is a particular organization called BWSSP. It is this organization which has to prevent water from entering this particular lake. Sewage water which is being dumped is entering this particular lake. So there is this authority which is not functioning. So what happens here? There is not a single authority which is taking care of this particular lake, but there are multiple organizations, multiple institutes. So as a result, there is fragmented governance, which means on a particular issue, there is not a single institution which is working on it, but it is multiple institutions. So there is no coordination, there is no interdepartmental understanding, and this will ultimately lead to fragmented governance, which means there is no coordination, and as a result, governance in the city will also suffer. City deal as a particular model always ensures that there is no fragmented governance, which India will have to implement in the future. So what should India do as a way forward? The central government must create a platform to build consensus among all the state governments. Recently, what we have also seen is the Greater Bengaluru Governance Bill 2018 that was drafted by the expert committee of Bruhat Bengaluru Mahanagara Palike, and this has been restructuring, and this restructuring model also empowers that there is a directly elected mayor similar to that of the city deals from the UK model. If this can be implemented, more power is given to the mayor, then what we will see is the bureaucratization, which is controlled by the state government, is reduced, and what we will see is more number of people approaching the mayor, and this will have local issues addressed, is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says across sectors over time. What is this all about? This is about the government approach to multiple sectors and how project implementation when it comes to policy has to be done going forward. Let's understand what this editorial is all about. Every political party which forms the government has two job roles. What are those? One, it has to cater to immediate needs, so short-term goals, and two, it has to paint a long-term picture looking forward, envisioning what will happen 10 to 20 years down the lane. So you have the immediate goal that the government will have to look at. It also has to focus at the long-term infrastructure as well as the long-term goal. Let me give you a simple example. The Delhi Metro. The Delhi Metro construction, when it was initially started off, people started voicing against this particular metro. There was large scale agitation. There were protests that people did not want the construction of metro. Why? Because they were losing their property. Why? Because they were not able to think what would happen 10 to 20 years down the lane. They did not know the impact of this particular project, but the government was strong enough to stand by this particular order, and they initiated this particular project. So who is bearing the fruits of it? It is the people right now. So this Delhi metro has been able to reduce the pollution, it has been able to increase the economic activity, and also at the same time save the time for the people. So the government has to work on immediate goals like the inflation. It also has to cater what will happen in the long term 10 to 20 years down the lane by building up due infrastructure as well as norms that can be playing its card in the future, which people will not have any idea immediately. So these are the things that will happen, that is short term as well as the long term. During this particular process, the government may also face multiple challenges. It might be in terms of corruption, or there can be deforestation, there is environmental destruction, and there is also efforts of climate change. Bearing all this in mind, the government will have to continue and sustain its journey. So any government meeting requirements of short term with lack of vision for the future. So if the government is meeting only the short term goals, appeasing the people, giving them immediate results, not having what will happen 10 to 20 years down the lane, this particular government or this particular political party will see what is called as economic doldrums. So there is no growth factor that will happen in the future. Let's take a simple example. 1997 economic crisis. So what happens in East Asia is you have the number of countries which started devaluing the currency. Why? Because they wanted to give a boost to their export sector. This helped. They also developed, the number of employment also increased, but this ultimately led to an economic crisis in East Asian countries of Indonesia and so on. Again, let's go back to the year 2008. There were short-term goals. What was this? This was with respect to the housing sector. This housing sector saw immediate benefits, but did it look at what would happen 5 or 10 years down the lane? No. And what we see is immediately recession that captured the entire world, and there was large scale unemployment, which is a resultant of this particular goal. So you will have to focus both on short term as well as the long term approaches. Only focusing on short term will result in economic doldrums or depreciation in economic growth, which can be a catastrophe for the economic sector, is what the initial bit of it. So in order to ensure that this project implementation is also focusing on the long term sector, what we will also have to do is, there are three approaches that this particular article gives about. What are these? One is impact evaluation with respect to a particular project or a program. Then you have cost benefit analysis, and third is extension of objective based evaluation. Let's understand these three segments of project implementation when it comes to, according to this article. First, it speaks about impact. What do we mean by it? Let's say we have a program. Let's say we have a scheme that the government of India has come up with. What is the influence or what benefits that this particular program will drive for the future is what this impact evaluation is. Let me give you an example to elaborate this. You have the number of programs the government is coming up with. Let's say the electrification program. So the electrification program, what is the positive impact apart from creating this electricity? So it is providing 24/7 electricity. There is power at house, but because of power given to house, there is education sector which will have advantage. Why? Because there are students who are studying, because there is power. So there is indirect approach to this, because children are also evolving. If there is no power, what will happen? Children would not study because there is no power at home. But now there is power at home. It will create a positive influence on the children because they are studying. So apart from the main focus of that particular program, what are the byproducts of this particular product is what this impact evaluation is. So when you are laying down a particular project, what are the byproducts, what are the positive influence of this particular program or a scheme is what this impact evaluation is. So basically it look at the positive influence of this particular project or this particular program. Now let's look at another one called as cost benefit analysis. Let me again give you this particular program with reference to an example. So hunger is a major problem in India. So hunger has to be reduced. So the government of Karnataka recently came up with one of the program called as Indira Canteen. So what is this Indira Canteen? This will provide food at subsidized rates. So all these people who cannot afford the food in hotels which are costly enough can go up to Indira Canteen. They would be able to eat a good meal at about 5 or 10 rupees. So what is the agenda of the government? The government's agenda is to ensure that hunger is reduced. So this is one of the methods of how hunger can be reduced. Let's say the government is also doing another approach. Apart from providing direct food, it is also providing food materials through the PDS. What happens? The government is providing rice, it is providing cereals. So what is happening here? It is providing rice and cereals to that particular family on a monthly basis. So again, hunger can be reduced. But if this Indira Canteen is much better, it is able to reduce hunger, this particular project is better than the PDS. Now let's say in PDS there is a particular family. The family is getting about 5 kgs of rice. If they're using this entire 5 kg for their own family, well and good. So addressing of hunger is met. But what if this 5 kg of rice given by the government is pushed back or sold to someone else? So is it meeting the agenda? No. Is there cost benefit analysis? No. Why? Because the government is making certain investments in the form of cost. But if this particular cost is not able to meet that particular objective, the outcome is poverty elevation and controlling the hunger. This will be suffering. So what the government does, it has to look at all these objectives, whatever is good in terms of cost, in terms of investment, and merits and benefits in terms of its execution and outcome should be the point of implementation going forward. Now let's take the third one, which is extension of objective based evaluation. What do we mean by it? There is a program, there is a scheme. Within that particular scheme, let's say there is poverty that will have to be met up. So there are multiple objectives. One is there are children, there are women, there are disabled, then there are seniors. So each is different objective, but ultimate idea is to reduce the poverty. So poverty is the end game, but the number of objectives is to address with respect to children, with respect to women, with respect to disabled, with respect to the senior citizens. So addressing every sector, every objective towards the ultimate means of poverty is what is called as objective based evaluation. Now let me give you another example to elaborate much better. UPSC is the examination we are all planning to take up. So what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to reach Labasna. So this particular process will have 3 steps: prelims, mains and interview. So we will have to meet all these objectives at the same time. Breaking it further, we have polity, we have economy, we have geography. So for us to reach Labasna, we will have to meet these individual targets of finishing polity syllabus, finishing economy, finishing disaster management and so on. By finishing this, we will clear our prelims. By finishing prelims, we will reach the mains. By finishing mains, we will reach the interview, and ultimately we will reach what is called as the goal, and that is Labasna. So the ultimate idea is, when poverty as an objective is there are multiple dimensions attached to poverty, and how are we meeting the demands and output of this particular small entity is what this extension of objectives based evaluation all about. So what this article currently says is, in case we are able to meet all these important issues and we are able to address short term as well as the long term goals, what we will also see is, we will be focusing at the long term sector rather than focusing and appeasing people only on the short term sector. So this is what this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Cyberchondria. So what is this article all about? This is important from the health GS paper 2. Let's understand what this term is all about. This can be broken down into 2 parts. One is cyber, which means it is to do with the computer. The other one is the chondria, which is from a Greek word which stands for the breastbone or the cartilage. Let's try and understand what this cyberchondria is all about with reference to one of the examples. Let's take the example of encephalitis. So what happens according to this particular disease? It starts with high fever. There is neurological function which is hampered. There is mental disorientation with respect to this particular disease. Then there is confusion, delirium as well as coma ultimately. So what happens is, it initially starts off with high fever. So the minute there is an individual who has high fever, he gets into a fear psychosis that he may have this particular encephalitis. So which means that he may not have it, but because there is high fever, he comes under a presumption, he comes under an assumption that he may get encephalitis. Why? Because he starts googling. So this is all about internet medication. So he starts googling about encephalitis. He suddenly relates that encephalitis, one of the symptoms is high fever, and because he also has high fever, instead of removing this negativity, it has added more negativity and created that particular fear psychosis. It is that particular scenario is what is called as psychondria, which means this refers to severe anxiety that is fueled by medical information on the internet. So just because we happen to read something on the internet, we believe that this is the fact rather than checking up or going to the hospital. People who try to self-diagnose their own health condition by searching their symptoms on search engine usually suffer from what is called as cyberchondria, as they often misdiagnose their own condition. It is this particular section is what is called as cyberchondria. Now let's look into the next article. This article, walking the trash talk, is important from your environment, and this is speaking about the solid waste management. We have covered this issue on 27th of May 2019 under the second topic, urban landfills and solid waste management rules, at 2 minutes 38 seconds, which has been explained elaborately with respect to the same issue. So kindly look into it. Now let's look into the next article. These articles about BT brinjal, encephalitis as well as US-India trade war has all been explained in the past 1 week. So kindly refer this past 1 week CNA for the same. Let's look into the next article. This article is saying India to host UN meet on land degradation in September. This will not be discussed as of now. We will be discussing this elaborately as to what is desertification, what are the various issues with respect to India, how land degradation has been happening in India, what is the way forward in September when this particular convention happens in India. But as of now, let's suspend this particular article. Now let's look into some of the prelims practice questions. Which of the following statements about Worldwide Fund for Nature is correct? It is an international non-governmental organization founded in 1961. It works in the field of wilderness preservation and reduction of human impact on environment. It is headquartered in United Kingdom. The answer to this is 1 and 2 only, because this is not headquartered in United Kingdom. Instead, it is in Switzerland. Also remember, there are some important reports like the Living Planet report, the Debt for Nature Swap, as well as worldwide campaigns like the Earth Hour, which is also practiced by this Wildlife Fund for Nature. Let's look into the next practice question. Which countries have a coastline on Black Sea? Russia, Turkey, Armenia, Georgia, Azerbaijan. The answer to this is 1, 2 and 4 only, which means Russia, Turkey as well as Georgia. Let's look into the explanation and the map. So the countries around Black Sea is Russia, Georgia, Turkey, Bulgaria, Romania and Ukraine. It could be the main reason or reasons for the formation of African and Eurasian desert belt. It is located in subtropical high pressure cells. It is under the influence of warm ocean currents. The answer to this is 1 only, because 2 is wrong. It is not warm ocean currents. Let's look into the mains practice question. Municipal administration in India faces both structural and operational challenges. Examine in the context of post 74th Amendment Act. What I see right now is that number of people are also commenting. They are also writing on our comment section. This is very beautiful and very acknowledging and encouraging as well. What I also request is, it is just not about liking that particular comment. It is also not about discouraging that particular person. Please give them constructive criticism. All of us will have multiple dimensions with respect to that particular question. So what you feel is right can also be given in a constructive way. Please don't discourage another civil aspirant, but instead encourage him to write more and more, and please start writing more and more and give constructive criticism, and this is how we would be able to go forward and be in that particular list when UPSC announces it. So please ensure that you write as many answers as possible going forward. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.